So some concepts that the STEP Centre tends to emphasise most are the notions of broadening out and opening up decision making. In this talk I want to explain briefly what we mean by those different concepts. And the best way to think about it is by thinking about what we call appraisal. That when societies are determining what would be the best pathways to pursue in a given setting, in agriculture or in energy or in waste management, a whole range of different techniques might be employed in different settings, like cost-benefit analysis or quantitative analysis, participatory techniques, but they can be thought of as appraisal. They're ways in which society goes about trying to understand what are the key problems and solutions and what would be the best course of action. Now, we can think about appraisal then as having inputs and outputs. Inputs are the things that appraisal takes account of. So it'll look at certain kinds of problems. It'll include and exclude different kinds of options or pathways that can be taken into account. It'll have a different range of issues that it might address. So in all those ways, and many others, like the uncertainties or the different perspectives that are involved, appraisal can be relatively narrow or relatively broad. But likewise, there are the outputs of appraisal. This applies as much to quantitative techniques as to qualitative techniques. When they come to communicate their answers into policy debates and wider politics, they can treat the problem as basically having one solution. Here's the consensus, here's the answer. Or they can actually communicate with policy making by saying, well, here's the answer if you adopt this assumption. If you adopt this assumption X, then you get answer A. If you adopt assumption Y, then you get answer B. And in that fashion, policy making can open up. And there's wider appreciation for how there are a diversity of different perspectives that are valid. So why this matters is that we can actually think about all the different techniques, qualitative, participatory, analytic, deliberative, in the same basic field, that they can be relatively narrow in their inputs, or broad, and relatively have the effect of opening up or closing down. So for instance, to give an example, decision analysis is a whole family of techniques that can be used to give an apparently clear picture that here's the best option, here's the worst option. Or it can be used, as the chart now shows, to address uncertainty and show how the pros and cons of different pathways overlap with each other. Or it can be used to systematically explore how different perspectives give you a different picture of which pathway looks good and which pathway looks bad and what the uncertainties are. Likewise with participatory techniques, it's usually assumed that techniques like citizens' juries or consensus conferences are most useful when they do just that. They arrive at a verdict or a consensus. But actually these techniques too can be at their most useful when they help us understand how different assumptions lead to different conclusions. So based on that then, this chart shows with different colours, with the blue showing expert analytic quantitative approaches and the green showing participatory qualitative approaches. They can all variously be used in ways that close down or open up or narrow down or broaden out the picture we get of the problem. And what the STEP Centre is interested in is compensating for the pressures, always to close down and be as narrow as possible in decision making, to look at techniques that have the effect of at the same time broadening out the inputs, the kinds of issues and options and perspectives that are taken into account, but also open up a wider political space for understanding how different perspectives give different pictures of what would be the best course of action. And in that way, help decision making, in whatever sector it's being applied, be more accountable for the particular values and interests that it is highlighting and those that it might be marginalising.